Past 4 o'clock, or
It is. We must have a roster.
yep, we have a roster. Final cuts are in. The initial roster is complete. How are we feeling?
No huge surprises, no huge shocks, but some curious things. I think when it comes to the Eagles, you know how he's going to be active. There's going to be, look, I mean, they probably won't get anybody on waivers because they're 31st in waiver claim priority. But you would think he'll be active looking at the waiver wire, seeing who clears waivers and who can help this team, because there's some positions where they certainly need to address.
Yeah, they got some guys last year, and it wasn't like they were super high up.
Yeah, but not 14-3 high.
Yeah, that's true. All right, this is Eagle Eye Podcast. He's Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. We call it the initial roster because, well, it's going to change at some point, but they have to get the 53 to start this thing off, and the Eagles did that.
Yeah, and the one thing, like we asked about some individual players, and they just kept, Howie and Nick just kept emphasizing, we consider the roster the 53 plus 16 more guys on the practice squad. You can elevate these guys without risking losing them 3 times, and then you got to make a decision. But it's kind of like kick the can down. Like by week 4, you think, well, there's going to be
injuries.
There's going to be injuries or other moves that they can make. So you can have Britton Covey return punts for 3 weeks, Aaron Sipos, if that's what you choose to do, punt for 3 weeks. But eventually you're going to have to make some decisions here on the roster.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's start this podcast off with the biggest news we have. And that is, of course, when I put out a poll last week, there were over 1,000 votes about how you pronounce the word often, and 71.4% said they do pronounce the T.
Yeah, and I'm sure if I put that poll out on my Twitter, it would be the results would be. Your followers are gonna support you, and I
what if they didn't know?
I
don't think anyone really knew.
Well, it's on your Twitter, so I mean, I think everyone who voted probably listened to the pod, so they knew where you stood on it.
Maybe,
but I think the big surprise is that so many people care. So everywhere I went for the last week. You know, is it soften? Is it soften?
Yeah. Does
it apply to other words? But we struck a chord with that.
Yeah, it put my head in a little bit of a spin, free fall, if you will.
Yeah.
Speaking of pronunciation, though.
Yeah, that's good. Good segue.
Pretty good segue here. The Eagles traded for a tight end. Albert Okwuegbunam is how you pronounce his last name. He also has a pretty crazy middle name. So Albert Control V coming to Philly.
Yeah, he's a guy. He's a 4th-round pick in Denver in 2020. I had a pretty good year 2 years ago, 33 catches for 330 yards. So pretty much anybody, you don't have to be a math genius to figure out his average yards per catch, 330, 33 catches. Really good blocker, according to Pro Football Focus, which isn't the end-all, be-all, but it's a pretty good idea. Had a huge preseason finale, over 100 yards. And that kind of caught the Eagles' eye. And I really think tight end's an underrated position where they did need to upgrade. Well, we don't know if they upgraded, but on paper they did. Jack Stahl's not really a receiver. He's a good blocker. I'm not sure he's a great blocker. Grant Calcaterra can run and catch. Did make a huge impact last year. So this is a guy who I would guess is going to be tight end number 2. And the thing that he does is that, if Grant Calcaterra is out there, most likely – you're not running the ball. And if Stoll is out there, most likely you're not throwing it to him. I think Alberto gives you a little flexibility. You can run, you can throw.
Yeah.
So and they gave up a 5 and got a 7 back in addition to the player.
I think it was a 6 and they got a 7.
Yeah, 6, a 5. Yeah, 6. I thought it was a 5, but it's I like the move.
Yeah. 2025 6th-round pick. They get Albert O and a 7th-round pick back in 2025.
Yeah.
And it was basically, if you had heard about this guy, he was going to be waived by the Broncos. And we see these trades every once in a while. The Eagles were probably hoping to pull off a couple for the guys they were releasing. But it's basically like, hey, we're going to put a claim on this guy, but we might not get him. Let's just make sure we get him.
Yeah, and the way the waiver claim process works, if you're in the Super Bowl last year, you're 31st or 32nd. So most players, more than one team is going to claim. So
Not always the case.
Not always the case, but
yeah, he's a big dude, 6'5", 258. Definitely like has the measurables, height, weight, speed. Ran a 4.49 at 258 pounds. So that's a pretty good start. And look, I think from a purely athletic standpoint, there are some similarities between him and Tyree Jackson, but he's obviously a much more polished player. He can help you right now.
Yeah, and I like Tyree Jackson's ceiling. He's a fun player, an easy guy to root for. But yeah, I mean, if you're gonna upgrade the position, this guy's played.
And worth noting though, this guy is not a special teams guy.
He's not one snap.
Now, so you would think his whole career, no snaps on special teams. So you would think a guy who's this big, this fast, would make his mark there, and he hasn't. So that what you mentioned about him being tight end too, that starts to make some sense. Curious to see what this means for Grant Calcaterra.
Yeah, and just as of now, as of 4:00 or a little after 4:00 on Tuesday, all 4 tight ends are still on the roster. So they kept Stoll, they kept Calcaterra, and they kept Dallas Goedert as well.
They did.
But hey, I mean, it's not like this team needs more weapons. There's only one ball, but I like the player.
Yeah, there's a lot to like about him. I think, and it's kind of different than when they, claimed those guys last year and they sat on the bench for a season. Like I think the plan is probably to play this guy immediately. He has 1 year left on his rookie deal.
Right. His middle name is Chuck Wumika.
Yeah.
So just looking at the 2025 draft, the Eagles have their own picks in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd round, and the 7th round. They have a pick from the Saints in the 7th round from the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson trade. They have this pick from the Broncos in the 7th round. They traded their 4th round pick to the Lions in the DeAndre Swift move. And, and they traded.
Howie's not afraid to trade future picks.
No, he loves it.
Oh, get him back. That's the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, he might trade this guy next week for a 4. Who knows?
Like Ugo Amadi?
Ugo Amadi.
All right, let's just go through this initial roster position by position. We'll get through the offense. We'll take a break, and then we'll get to the defense. Sound good?
Sounds like a good plan.
All right, we'll start with quarterback. They did keep Jalen Hurts. Also Marcus Mariota, Tanner McKee. No surprises here. Ian Book was waived. We knew this was coming. What do you make of this 3 going into the season?
Yeah, as good as Tanner McKee has been, it wasn't a slam dunk when camp started.
We're talking about that being a competition.
Yeah. I think all things being equal, McKee would have won the job as their own pick, but Ian Book was a 4th round pick. Somebody saw something in him that I haven't seen. He's a 4th round pick. So there was a little competition. It was over as soon as we saw Tanner. But like the first day of practice, it
was trending that way. And then when we saw him in the preseason, it was,
Yeah. He actually, he didn't have a good first week.
No, I disagree with that. I thought he was okay. He didn't throw the ball down the field.
No, you had no idea, though. Yeah, I mean, you had no idea just what he was going to do in the games. When he started playing like that in that first game, it was like, where's this been?
I mean, he didn't throw the ball downfield at all.
Not once.
In practice. You could see the arm strength. Like when they would run slants, he would fire it in there. But it wasn't until the game where, I mean, he's throwing the ball back shoulder 25 yards down the field with no separation. It was impressive.
It was. And he'll be number 2, I would think, at some point. Not this year, but
okay.
Yeah. At some point.
Fair enough. All right, let's go to running back. I don't think we need to spend too much time on QB.
Yeah.
They kept 4. Kenny Gainwell, DeAndre Swift, Rashad Penny, Boston Scott.
Yeah, and Sermon was going to be a long shot from the start. And I think I wrote back in July, like the only way he was going to make the team was if he was appreciably better than Boston Scott, or if Rashad Penny got hurt. Really, his best chance to make the team was if one of the backs got hurt. And if one of them got hurt, it was most likely going to be Penny. Mm-hmm. I think as soon as Penny was able to stay healthy and showed that he had some explosion and he looked like the player they thought, it was going to be really tough for Sermon. I don't think he's a bad player. He had a bad fumble, but then he bounced back with a 33-yard touchdown, 35-yard touchdown. I would think he'll clear waivers.
Possibly. Now,
somebody might.
There's a chance he gets claimed.
There's a chance he gets claimed.
I think the Eagles were probably trying to trade him.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's a guy who was a pretty high draft pick.
3rd round pick 2 years ago.
there has been some intrigue about him, but he was very clearly their 5th best running back all camp.
Yeah.
And people talk about Boston Scott, like, well, maybe he can be done. Boston Scott was much better than him all summer.
Yeah, and Boston Scott's got a body of work. I mean, he had to be better than Boston Scott, and he wasn't.
All right, let's move on to receiver. Low here. Only 4 receivers on this initial roster. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins, and Olamide Zaccheaus.
Yeah, and we knew they were 1 through 4. The question was always going to be, do they keep 5? If they keep 5, who's 5? Is it Covey? Is it one of the young guys that some of the young guys look really good. I thought Tyreek Cleveland, before he got hurt, was having a really nice summer. We saw all of them make plays at some point, like Deion Kane. Nagata got off to a good start. Johnny King had a nice little run. Devin Allen had a really good preseason game the other night. We know what Greg Ward can do. I mean, there was a lot of bodies. And I think we'll see probably 3 of those guys tomorrow on the practice squad. Who do you think's most likely? I mean, I think we agree Covey if he clears waivers, which I think he will. But
yeah, I mean, if he clears waivers, they better hope he clears waivers.
Yeah. I don't think it's a slam dunk. I think it's very likely.
I think it's very likely.
But
Devin Allen's worth keeping around.
Probably.
And Ngata.
Yeah, he's got some size.
I think those 3.
He had a tough last week, but
sure.
But I think he showed enough to at least
early on. I thought he did some good things.
Devin did good things in the games too.
Early, yeah. The last game was tough going against starters.
Yeah.
What do you make of them not keeping Covey on the 53? Because this is obviously a calculated risk. Do you think it's more about trying to upgrade that position or more about them just thinking we don't need to keep him on this 53? We can play this game with the practice squad?
That's a great question. Maybe a little of both. Maybe they're like, if he clears waivers, we'll bring him back, but let's see what's out there. Maybe we can find someone better. I think he's pretty good. 11.7 from week 5 on, was 4th best in the league. But he's not a guy who's going to threaten to bust, an 80-yarder either. It's a great question. I mean, there's really nobody. I mean, we saw Zaccheaus take some reps in practice, but
he has like 2 or 3 in his career.
Yeah, he has 3 for 36 yards in his career.
They have Devontae in a pinch.
I think he's got 2 in his career.
Yeah, I mean, but he can do it.
He can do it, but they don't want to run him out there, sir.
No, not as an everyday punt returner.
Quez.
Don't see it with Quez.
I don't see it. I think right now, I mean, if you had to play today, it would be Zaccheaus. But I think there's a really good chance Covey clears waivers. But then you still have, you can only elevate him 3 times.
Yeah, but like we're kind of mentioning with the roster gymnastics, by the time you get that deep in the season, there's probably going to be a way to figure this out.
Yeah, and I'm sure there'll be someone else you can cut, put on the practice squad, and elevate him if you need. Grant Calcaterra maybe would be a candidate for that. But I am surprised they're 4 deep. I don't think any one of those other guys. I thought overall it was a really good group of, like, the second group of receivers. I don't think any one of them was consistently good enough. They all had good stretches. But I don't think any one of them.
Yeah, I don't think I was as impressed with the second tier receivers as you were. You're right. I mean, I didn't think they were consistent at all.
Yeah, but I mean, you're not going to get that. Greg Ward is a guy that I'd always be happy with him on the team, but
he was also dealing with an injury late in camp.
Yeah. But this is going to be a really interesting position. And even a guy like Freddie Swain, they seem to like. He was a former fourth round pick.
Yeah.
6th round pick. My bad. Yeah. Seahawks. No, Colts. He's a guy I wouldn't be surprised to see back on the practice squad too.
Yeah, I think those other 3 are probably more likely.
Probably.
Yeah.
What receiver is most likely to get claimed?
That's a good question.
Probably Covey or Devin Allen. Devin Allen has a unique trait that teams.
He's also 28.
Yeah.
So, and God, I wouldn't sleep on either because it wasn't that long ago. We're talking about him as a big time recruit. Went to a big school. Eagles paid him a lot of money to lure him to Philly. He was the top earner among the undrafted class. So I don't think that's crazy.
No, it's a good name.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Tight end. We mentioned it already. I don't think we need to go too deep, but they have 4 right now. What do you think happens here? Do they carry 4 into the regular season?
I'm going to say no. I don't think they do. And I'm a little bewildered by it. And, Jack Stoll played like 38% of the offensive snaps last year, something.
A lot. I think even more than that.
I think you're right. I'll look it up while you're talking, but.
Well, you're talking, so I'll look it up.
I'm not sure Grant Calcaterra
49%.
49 played 600 snaps. I'm not sure Calcaterra has anything locked up. I like his potential. I mean, he's been healthy, no concussion issues.
I thought he had a good bookend camp. He started strong, finished strong. The middle was
Yeah. But I just don't see him keeping 4.
You're probably right. Unless they view Calcaterra as your 5th receiver.
Could be. I mean, he catches the ball really well. I don't know how many reps they're going to be for all these tight ends.
Well, the problem is you're not keeping 4 active on game day, you
No.
wouldn't think.
No. Maybe they keep Calcaterra and just keep him on the bench.
Unless Okwebano, it's like the problem is he's in the last year of his rookie deal, so you didn't trade to keep him on your bench and develop him. You traded it to play him.
Right. I wonder if they'll work some. If they like what they see, I'll bet they extend him.
Well, maybe. Yeah. I don't think they need the rush to do that.
No. But I'm saying if they like what they see over the next 6 weeks, 8 weeks.
You think that's soon?
Yeah, because I don't think it's going to cost you a ton.
Okay. Maybe.
I wouldn't be shocked. We'll see. It's a little early for that. He didn't get here yet.
He's not here. He's boarding a flight probably. Offensive line, they kept 9. Last year they kept 10, so 1 less this year.
1 less.
Let's go through them.
Well, let's go through the backups, I guess. We know who the starters are.
Okay. All right.
Whatever you like.
Skip over the starters.
We don't have to.
Tyler Steen, Jack Driscoll, Fred Johnson, Sua Opeta.
Yeah, and I think O-line depth is a concern a little bit. I don't think Driscoll had a super camp. Steen is promising, but obviously hasn't played. Fred Johnson's he's a great story. Had a really good camp. I don't know.
This group is not as deep as it's been in the past.
Certainly. And, Sua is okay. But it's and look, if anybody can get those guys up to speed, it's Stout. But you just hope they don't have to play.
There are 3 guys who did not make the roster that at different points in the summer, I was convinced were going to make the roster.
On the O-line?
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if I can guess who they are.
I think you'll be able to.
Well, Brett Toth when it started.
Yeah.
I'd say Dennis Kelly when he got here.
Yeah.
Dennis Kelly. I was really sure he would when he got here. And I would say Josh Andrews.
Different Josh.
Josh Sills.
Yeah. Josh Andrews never struck me as a guy they were going to keep on the 53, but Josh Sills came in. They put him out there at left guard, the second team left guard the day he got back, and he just struggled. And after they kept him all last year, they clearly liked him enough to stand by him while he was on the commissioner exempt list, and they bring him back immediately. I thought they were going to keep him, but Sua Opeta outplayed him. Sua just won that job.
Sua's solid. Yeah, he's solid. It's crazy that he's in his 5th year here.
Yeah, 2019, undrafted out of Weber State.
Yeah. You know who else went to Weber State?
I don't.
The great Rico Washington. You know the story of Rico Washington? Philly schoolyard basketball legend.
Okay.
And I covered him at Gloucester County College when he played for Ron Mitchell. And he went to Weber State, led Division I in rebounding, and died tragically young, very young. But he's a Philly guy. Where did he go to high school? Rico Washington. And he's just one of the greatest Philly high school players ever. Let's see where he went to high school. Or you can start talking again. I'll find it. It doesn't say on the Weber State website. Anyway. Oh, Ted Solari.com. Frankfurt, played at Frankfurt. Anyway.
I like that you told me to keep talking while you were continuing to talk.
Because I knew you wouldn't.
Okay. You're right. I would have let you sit in that one for a little bit.
Rico Washington.
Of the offensive linemen, they're going to keep a few of them on the practice squad. I would think they'd want to get Sills there if they can. Probably one of those veterans, maybe like a Dennis Kelly, if he's willing to stick around on the practice squad.
Yeah, I wonder if he would be. I mean, he's played.
It's a nice paycheck.
Years. When he entered the league in 12.
It's over $200,000 a year to practice. He's
made a lot of money. He doesn't strike me as someone who I'm going to say he wouldn't, but I could be totally wrong.
Okay.
I think Julian Good-Jones is a guy you could see on the
he's one who
practice
quietly had a really good summer. This is, he is a much better player than when he was here in 2020.
He was here in 2020, went and played in the CFL, right, for Calgary?
Yeah, Calgary.
Is that how they say it?
I think they say it like that, yeah.
No, they don't.
Calgary, yeah.
I don't hear it's pronounced that way often.
That's because you're not
wait a minute.
In Canada.
I don't believe this.
I don't know how you're going to look that up. That's an inflection, not really a...
There's a way to look up everything.
Okay. But he's a much better player. It's a good reminder that you shouldn't
Calgary.
Okay. Is that robot Canadian?
Calgary.
You can play with the speed of it. It's a Canadian robot.
Okay. Reuben made a friend on this
There's
podcast.
A whole story. My friend, the pronunciation robot. I've never heard it pronounced that way.
Okay. I don't like that. Can we?
Oh, skip. Wait a minute. Here, let's try one more thing.
We are looking at how to pronounce this name as well as how to say more interesting and often confusing.
All right, shut up.
Mispronounced.
Shut up. We have anyone from Canada here? Anyway. All right. Where were we? Julian Jones.
Yeah, he's a much better player. It's a good reminder that guys sometimes get better, and we don't give that enough credit. And I think we've seen guys go to other leagues and come back better players.
Yeah, Deion Kane.
Deion Kane, Greg Ward.
Greg Ward certainly played in the XFL. Deion Kane played in the USFL. He was MVP of the championship.
Didn't Greg Ward play in the?
I thought it was the XFL.
AAF.
Yeah, you're right. AAF. Who played? Somebody played in the XFL. But yeah, you can definitely help yourself. And one thing about Harry Roseman, they scout every league. They scout every country.
Yeah, you give them credit. The fringe guys, they win on the margins, as people like to say. They'll look for talent and a lot of times you just whiff, and you got to just take those losses. Which I think Brett Toth might be a loss at this point.
And when they do, it doesn't cost them anything. That's the beauty of these kind of moves. Like if Jordan Mailata hadn't panned out, it cost him a 7th-round pick. It's definitely worth the risk. You look at the guy like Isaiah Rodgers. Did we talk about him yet?
No, we didn't. We can talk about him.
Nothing to lose.
Yeah, we'll get the defense, even though he's not on the roster, but we can talk about him. Any other surprises on the offensive line?
Surprised that there's 9, but I think we might see some.
Surprised that
I just don't like the depth. I'm not.
You thought they would keep 8?
I thought they keep
or more. You're saying
10.
Okay,
just because.
The problem is I don't think they had a guy who was worth that 10th spot.
I think there will be one. I think there'll be one who shows up tomorrow.
Okay,
I think that's a position where I don't think he's done, but I could be wrong.
All right, you want to go to the defense on the other side?
Yeah.
Catch all the sports action and more at Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Whether it's the money line or the pass line, there's something for everyone in a great sports book. Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. I know how he likes the defensive line. This is a lot even for him.
It is. It is. The numbers are, and like he said, this is a position that they value. The interior line that's going to be a crowded room with a bunch of big guys.
Yeah, let's start with that one. 7 defensive tackles on this initial roster. Fletcher Cox, Milton Williams, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Marlon Tuipulotu, Moro Ojimo, Contavious Street. I think those, obviously the top 4 were stone cold locks. Marlon Tuipulotu felt like a lock to me with the summer he had. He's the backup nose tackle. Those last two, it could have gone either way.
Yeah. One interesting thing that strikes me about this group is Fletch is the only guy that's over. Kentavious Street might be 26, but he's the only guy that's like an older player. I have my age roster here somewhere, but Street is 27, actually. He's been around a while. But it's a young group and a young, promising group. It's like Fletch and a bunch of kids.
A lot on Fletcher's plate.
Yeah. Yeah. What kind of camp has he had?
Quiet. But like that, you know.
He doesn't really need to go
I don't
out there.
think that's indicative of what season he's going to have.
Yeah, we don't really know. I don't know. I mean, he's going to year 11. I don't think he's going to have to play a ton of snaps. I'm happy for Moro Jomo, 7th round pick. Had a good summer.
He did.
Missed that time with the concussion. But up until then, I mean, he was really playing well.
Yeah, I thought he earned that roster spot. Now we'll see. I mean, he could be an IR candidate. Now, so that we've explained this before, but now once you get through the initial 53-man roster, you can put a guy on IR, and it's not season ending anymore. So they have not really many candidates for that because like Mario Goodrich returned.
Yeah, if a guy comes back,
Ojimo returned.
Yeah, and the league really will look at guys like you can't stash guys.
Yeah,
they frown on that. You could lose a draft pick if you get caught putting a healthy guy in IR. But yeah, so like take Moro Jomo for instance. If they put him on IR at 359, his season's over. If he makes the 53, you put him on IR at 401. He's back in week 5.
Yeah. Kentavious Street. Now we watched him not play in that final game. And that's a great sign that he was going to be on the roster. And for whatever reason, I still didn't believe it because 7 is such like a shocking number.
I think I put him on my 53.
Yeah, so you believed it. It was tough for me to believe that. I thought he was a guy who they could play that game with, cut him and then bring him back after week 1 when you don't have to guarantee that salary.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a vested vet, I believe, right?
He is, yeah, which is like those guys, if they're on the team in week 1, their salary is guaranteed for the year.
Yeah. He's been around. He had 3.5 sacks last year.
His best year.
His best year, 3 the year before for the Niners. Last year was with the Saints. Interesting guy. I mean, when camp started, I mean, he's like, was he like 6'2", 290?
Mm-hmm.
When camp started, wasn't really on the radar. He was just another vet. They like something about him.
He started to flash a little bit more late in camp. And maybe you mentioned how young this group is. Maybe that has something to do with it too.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he's in his 6th year. He was a 4th round pick back in 18, I think. Yeah, out of North Carolina State. It's interesting, and Fletcher has handled, I think, that role of being the elder statesman so well.
Yeah, I talked to Tracy Rocker about that a while back, and Tracy like actively asks Fletcher to do some of that because he knows it'll mean more coming from a player than it does from him. That's an interesting dynamic in that room. I don't think Fletcher will ever be a coach. I don't think he wants to be a coach.
Yeah,
but he's coaching right now.
Yeah, I can't see Fletcher being a coach. I don't think he sees
himself being a coach.
I don't think he'd want those 18-hour days.
Yeah.
After playing for a decade. A lot of talent there. We haven't talked a lot about Jordan Davis this summer. It's been all right.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing we've learned about Jordan Davis this summer is that he's playing in 4-man fronts, that's a big deal. If he can play in some nickel fronts, then that kind of opens up the possibilities with him. The problem is, at least for him, like if they're in a clear passing situation, I still don't think he's on the field.
Yeah.
Because you have Jalen Carter, Fletcher Cox, and Milton Williams.
Right.
So, but they're like, I think we'll see him in more 4-man fronts this year than last year, which was almost non-existent.
Yeah, I would agree.
All right, edge rusher. They kept 6: Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Nolan Smith, Derek Barnett, Patrick Johnson.
Yeah, and we still don't know Smith's status. You asked Nick, I believe it was you.
It was me. Yeah.
You asked Nick about him, and he certainly was non-committal about whether he'd be ready for the opener. But we'll see.
Yeah, basically said we'll see. I think I don't want to misquote him.
I think the quote was when he's
I
ready,
have it
he'll
in
play.
front of me. If he's ready to go, we'll play him. If he's not, then we won't. But we feel good that he's on the right path, but we'll see. Don't want to set any unrealistic expectations. So certainly not he's going to be ready.
Yeah, and we're still 12 days out from the opener, so you would look, it's if he misses a couple games, it's not the end of the world. You have Sweat, you have BG, you have Reddick.
Reddick dealing with the thumb.
Says he'll be ready for the opener, but doesn't really know how he'll respond to having protection on it. And then you have Barnett, who is still here.
Yeah, which is why Barnett is a valuable piece if you're dealing with some injuries. And they didn't trade him. There were reports out there, and the Eagles were going to listen to offers, but I don't know how much they were going to get back for a Derek Barnett. Maybe like a day 3 conditional pick.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think he's more valuable to keep around than on a team that has Super Bowl aspirations than a day 3 pick.
Especially with Nolan Smith and Hassan Reddick dealing with injuries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a position they value so much.
I don't think he had a particularly good camp.
I don't either. But I think he's an average player, like an average rotational player. I know fans are over him for the most part, and I get that.
That's probably because of the penalties.
Penalties and the draft status, and there's plenty of reasons to be frustrated with his career here. But if he's playing 15 snaps a game, you probably live with that. Yeah. I don't know if you're going to get a better player to play 15 snaps a game.
Yeah, and Patrick Johnson,
who, look,
had a better camp than Barnett.
I don't know if he missed so much time.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he did, but he's flashed a little bit.
Yeah.
He plays special teams.
Yep.
Kyron Johnson did not make the team. He's someone that they'd like to get back on the practice squad. He's someone who could help them on special teams as an elevation if he can get through waivers.
Yeah, I think we'll see him tomorrow, I would guess. I think he clears waivers.
Janaris Robinson got cut, spent the whole year on the roster last year. I saw some flashes from him, but it was like an inconsistent summer.
Yeah, former 4th-round pick of the Vikings. Looks the part.
Big, long arms,
and you
defensive end body.
You'd see some. Yeah, he's a defensive end. He's not an edge rusher. He's like an old-fashioned 4-3 defensive end. But, yeah, you saw some flashes here and there, but not enough.
Linebacker. 3.
This will be quick.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of guys to talk about. Off-ball linebacker, I should say. Nakobe Dean, Zach Cunningham, Christian Ellis. I had 3 of my 53. Did you as well?
I believe I think I might have kept Nick Morrow just out of I had to find a name. I had to keep 4 guys.
Yeah.
Let me call it up here.
That's okay. It doesn't really matter. But they did cut Nicholas Morrow. They cut Ben Van Sumeren, the undrafted rookie. And this is a position where they're not done. I don't think they can go into a season with 3 linebackers.
Especially 3 linebackers, 2 of whom have barely played in the NFL. And Nakobe and Christian Ellis have a combined 63 snaps in their career. And Zach Cunningham, who just got here 2 weeks ago, has been good, but still a newcomer. Wasn't even here for all the camp. It's an iffy group. It's a concern. It's probably the biggest concern on the roster, for me at least. And I think Nakobe's going to be okay. It might take him some time. He hasn't played, and you see flashes from him, certainly that the forced fumble was, I think, made a lot of people feel better about him, and I thought he played better in practice after that. But he hasn't played. Did
I mention to you my funny little Nakobe story?
No.
I was interviewing him one day at after practice, and I had like the microphone and my recorder and my notebook and pen, like juggling all this stuff. And we're done the interview, and he goes to give me a fist bump. I didn't tell you this.
No.
He goes to give me a fist bump, and I like tried to like shuffle all the stuff around in my hands and give him a fist bump back, saying like, thanks for the time. And I like dropped my recorder and my phone, and someone was like, forced fumble. And he walked away. He's like, that's what I do.
That's good.
It was good. Yeah.
I did keep Nicholas Morrow against my better judgment.
Yeah, I just didn't see it with him. And
No.
He's a guy who came into the summer as the leader
Sure.
to win a starting linebacker job, and it was apparent pretty quick he wasn't going to be.
Yeah, he just wasn't very good. He just didn't make plays. He wasn't around the ball. There was something just he just.
You give Howie credit for going to find Zach Cunningham.
Oh yeah.
Because I think some GMs would have said, "Well, I got this guy to do that. I want to see if he can do it."
Yeah, and Miles Jack, kind of one guy worked out, one guy retired.
Yeah.
So
not a bad hit rate.
Not a bad hit rate, but
for guys off the street at least.
It's certainly my biggest area of concern on the team. And Christian Ellis had a nice camp and great OTAs, but I don't know.
Yeah. Now we'll get to safety in a little bit because I think that these two positions are kind of connected.
Sure.
In some ways, but let's skip ahead. Let's go to safety because they kept 4. Kayvon Wallace was the odd man out. They really had 5 guys we thought they could keep.
Yeah.
Kayvon doesn't make the team. Reed Blankenship, Justin Evans, Sidney Brown, and Terrell Edmonds do.
I cut Edmonds. I think Kayvon was better than Edmonds, so I just kept him, even though I kind of knew or suspected they would cut Kayvon.
Yeah, well, Edmonds is the guy, if you're looking for someone to kind of play linebacker, just to play linebacker, I think Edmonds is your better bet, and maybe that's what they're thinking.
It could be. Maybe that's part of the plan. I just didn't see much from him. All those 1-year guys, it's interesting, like Greedy Williams, Edmonds, you mentioned Morrow. Those are all 1-year veteran guys. You also put Rashad Penny in that group.
Sure.
And he had a really good
all like 600,000 guaranteed or under.
Yeah, all low cap hits or easy to cut. It seems to be a low. You get guys for a year and you got to figure it out again. I mean, ideally, you'd like to, have guys on multi-year deals.
Yeah, but I think it's a fine way to operate because they're low risk, high reward, and you don't have a ton of money to throw around multi-year deals to all these guys.
I just don't think they have a really high success rate on those guys.
Yeah, but I don't think the success rate really matters. You're throwing darts. If a few of them land, they land.
Maybe.
But what's the harm in signing a Nicholas Morrow?
I guess just that, like, if you have, you invested 6 months in him, or 4 months, 5 months, whatever, and now you got a guy in there who's been here 2 weeks. It's not
sure, but I just think
I think they made the right choice.
Yeah, no, certainly. I just think it's unrealistic. Like that, you just can't give big contracts to everyone.
No,
you're going to have some of these filler pieces.
Yeah, and they've drafted well, so you can't really. I mean, generally those type of guys. I mean, that's how they won the Super Bowl in 17. So a bunch of 1-year guys, like so Patrick Robinson and Corey Graham and LeGarrette Blount. It was really similar type deal. So it does work out sometimes.
Cornerback, they kept 7, a big number there. We'll see what they do. I have Darius Slay, James Bradbury, Avonte Maddox, Josh Jobe, Keely Ringo, Eli Ricks, and Mario Goodrich.
Yeah, interesting. A lot of cornerback talent. They cut Josiah Scott and Garner. Interesting to me that Avonte Maddox and Keely Ringo are 4th-round picks. Ricks, Jobe, and Goodrich are all undrafted. And Slay and Bradbury, the 2 free agents, were 2nd-round picks. So, because they haven't drafted a ton of corners.
Mm-hmm. McPherson would have made the team. He was
also a 4.
Yeah.
Who's the last corner? Rasul Douglas and Sidney Jones. Like they just
2017.
That's a long time ago now. So it's an interesting group. I mean, to have 3 undrafted guys, and I'm not sure about Goodrich, but I think Jobe's really good. And Ricks, to me, I think he gets claimed if they cut him.
Which I think is why they kept him.
Yeah.
Because on merit.
Exactly.
It was the problem for them was that Ricks was so much better when everyone could see him.
Sure.
In the preseason games.
Yep.
If it's the other way, like Mekhi Garner might have been better in practice.
He probably was. I thought he was.
He was, yeah.
Yeah.
But he didn't do that in front of 31 other teams.
But also, I think Ricks has, I mean, he has that reputation. I mean, he was the top corner coming out of high school. When he was at LSU, he was considered maybe a first-round pick. So he's got that cachet, I guess. Is that the word?
Yeah.
Catch it. Let me find the pronunciation again. Calgary.
Call your friend the robot.
The pronunciation robot, my best friend. I think that all goes into it. I think he gets claimed, but I think Job had a really, really solid preseason or summer. Goodrich was okay, a little banged up.
I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah,
I really did. Even in games, I thought he showed up, had a few big pass breakups.
Okay.
He's the one, obviously, who benefited from the Zach McPherson injury. McPherson was running second team nickel, and honestly, it was not a smooth transition
for Zach.
He struggled a little bit. Goodrich looks not better, but looks like a more natural fit inside.
Yeah. Goodrich can definitely play inside or outside.
Now, do you think they can get Keely Ringo to sprain an ankle or something?
Yeah, because Ricks is ahead of him, and
he's a developmental corner. And
Garner's probably ahead of him.
Yeah, he's a developmental corner. Like, I don't think he earned this roster spot on merit.
He was a fourth-round pick.
He was a fourth-round pick, but even more than that, they traded away a future 3 to get him.
Right.
They're really excited about him. But
he won't play this year.
He's raw. He won't play. He'll be inactive. Maybe he can get hurt in practice like Josh Sweat did in 2018.
Yeah, I think that's – don't be shocked if you see him on the injury report.
Maybe not right away.
Yeah, maybe like when they come back Wednesday, because in that you don't need 7 corners, and he's the last one. And not knocking him, not saying he's not going to be a player, but
yeah, there's certainly good traits here, and you see it. Like, you see why, you see the height, weight, speed, you see the coverage ability. He had trouble tracking the ball.
Yeah,
in the preseason and in practice. Yeah. Those are all things they can work on.
Yeah. He needs a redshirt year big time.
He needs a redshirt year. But like, that's not a bad thing. There aren't many guys who are as big as him who run as fast as him. You can teach a lot of the other stuff. I can't teach a guy to run a 40 like that. Kind
of like N'Kobe last year, but if he's on IR, he can't, it's not a redshirt year. He can't practice. So it will be interesting. Maybe they keep him. It's tough numbers.
It is. Yeah.
Because at some point they're going to have to sign a punter.
Yeah, well, let's get to that. They have 2 specialists, unless they never sign a punter and they just don't punt.
We have seen Jake Elliott punt a couple times, right? When
emergency, yeah.
35 yards. You got out there 35, 36 yards.
We saw them kick some extra points in practice. We did not see any fun punter battles.
No, but Justin Evans probably a little ahead of Ty Zettner.
What do you make of that? No Siposs on the roster. It's just Jake Elliott and Rick Lovato. They cut Aaron Siposs.
We asked Nick and Howie about that, and they said, well, 69-man roster, practice squad. But at some point, you have to make a call. And I think we figured out he's not vested, right? So he could get claimed. I doubt that he would. I can't imagine he would, actually. So I guess you can bring him back. But I think they know they have to get better. So maybe they see what's out there.
Yeah, I think the 2 spots, the punt returner and the punter, I view them differently. I want to get your take on this. I view the punt returner, them still thinking it's Covey. Like, they might look around, but I think they're still in on Covey as the punt returner.
Yeah.
At punter, I think they would like to get better, but they have to see if there's a way they can do it.
Yeah, and their
fallback plan would be Siposs.
Yeah, this gives them the opportunity. They know they have to get better. I would agree with that. I think Covey's the guy. I still don't think Siposs is the guy.
Yeah. They'll have to. There were some battles in camps, so they'll have to really take a look on. Maybe they'll bring some guys in for a tryout.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they'd claim one. They can maybe sign one to a practice squad.
Yeah.
It is fun to watch the Eagles maneuver around the new practice squad rules. They seem to get it more than other teams, how they can kind of manipulate this thing. And they're going to get burnt here and there, but it's a way to, because not all the 53 guys are going to be active on game day anyway. So you're going to have players on your 53-man roster at the back of the roster who are just like developmental guys that you don't want to lose. You want to keep them around. You're not confident that you can keep them if you try to get into your practice squad. But then, like, they're not going to play.
Yeah.
You need some of those practice squad guys you can elevate, you can move things around. And we've seen that before, like Christian Ellis last year started off in the practice squad. They brought him up as an elevation, and he was good enough. And then they said, we got to find a roster spot for this guy, and they did.
Yeah.
What do you make of the special team stuff? They cut some good special teamers.
Yeah.
This special teams unit might be in trouble. And they were already not very good.
They were in trouble before they already lost Sean Bradley and Zach McPherson.
They cut Kayvon Wallace.
Chiron were two of their better guys. It's I mean, some of these young guys are going to have to make an impact because they're missing maybe four of their best guys last year.
Rough day for Michael Clay.
There've been a few of those.
They cut his punter. They cut some of his best special teamers.
They cut his returner.
His returner, yeah. It's a rough day to be Michael Clay. I would like to be in the room when they tell him that. Like, Michael, don't get too upset. We are cutting your punt returner and your punter today. Excuse me?
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be interesting to see how they line up. I mean, I've been pretty vocal about I don't think he's a great special teams coach. At least the product they put out there the last couple of years has not been.
Let me ask you about that. How much is him and how much is personnel? Because this is like I think it's been an organizational thing where they've put fewer resources into.
They used to have those Brian Brayman type, Chris Maragos type of guys.
Yeah. Even returners.
I think it's a little both. I think it's a little both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's changed, certainly.
Yeah.
It even changed before Dave Phipp was gone. His special teams units took a nosedive at the end.
Yeah, remember that?
I think it was a lot of personnel.
Yeah, could be. And that's going to be an issue. I mean, Sidney Brown should be a good special teamer. I mean, I don't know. Is Nakobe going to play some snaps? Did I say Sidney Jones?
No.
Oh, you looked at me like I said something. It'd be interesting to see if a handful of starters have to play special teams.
You can't do it.
You can't, but I mean,
Nakobe can't play special teams this year.
I wouldn't think so.
He can play every snap on defense.
Mario Goodrich should be a good special teamer. Ricks, if he's up.
Theoretically, Keeley should be good.
He should be, but he probably won't be stressing out. Tanner McKee, Gunner.
I did want to mention Isaiah Rodgers. You brought him up. The Eagles bringing in Isaiah Rodgers. He is suspended for at least this year. He's eligible for reinstatement following the 2023 season.
They seem confident he'll be reinstated.
They do. He's already shown some contrition for his acts. They got caught gambling.
Yeah, we know the NFL frowns on gambling because I think every sponsor they have is.
It's a very weird thing.
It is.
They've really thrown their weight around to make sure players know that this is not acceptable. But Isaiah Rodgers is an interesting guy. I don't. This is another example of how he just finding talent wherever he can.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I wasn't really sure about that, and I asked Howie about this. Like, he can't have a playbook. The coaches can't. Like, we knew he wasn't allowed to practice with the team. He's not allowed to be with the team. They can't coach him over the phone. So Howie says he'll show up next year if he's cleared, if he's reinstated, and compete for a job. But I mean, he's a guy who Nick was with him in Indy for, I guess, just the 1 year, right? His rookie year, I believe. He had a 101-yard kick return for a touchdown as a rookie. Had a few interceptions in 2021. Had 3 picks, knocked down 7 balls as a part-time player. He's an outside corner. Hasn't played slot. And he's only 25. So they've got a lot of young corners, and
they've done this before. I mean, they bring in young bodies at corner, and they just see what they have.
Yeah, so
and they're not all going to work out. Like when they went through Tay Gowan and Kerry Vincent
Jr.
Yeah, not to be confused with his father. Yeah,
but if you can find a guy. To me, it's amazing. And I asked Howie about this today about I mean, Goodrich, Job, and Ricks are all young, undrafted corners.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the undrafted class last year, 3 of their undrafted defensive backs are on this roster.
Yeah, because Reed
Blankenship,
Reed,
Josh Job, and
Goodrich.
Goodrich.
Yeah.
That's a heck of a.
That's incredible.
Yeah, you don't see that very often.
And then add Ricks to that, and you have 4 undrafted D-backs. And good for
And that
Howie.
would be different if they were drafting guys who didn't work out. Then you're like, well, that's not good,
right?
Because these guys are better than the players they drafted. They haven't really drafted corners who haven't worked out.
Yeah, and Howie gave credit to the pro scouting staff or the college scouting staff for these guys. That's a sign of a good staff if you're finding these guys. I mean, what's the hit rate on undrafted rookies? Like 5%?
Yeah, not great.
You bring in 15, 20 of them, whatever, depending on where your roster is. 1 or 2 makes
13 this year for the
13.
class, yeah.
So 1 out of 13 made it
initially.
So to have that big a chunk of your secondary be undrafted guys is really, really unusual. And I thought Garner, who's another undrafted guy, I thought I think we'll see him again.
Even Brady Russell, who we didn't talk about a ton, the tight end, I think he could stick around in the practice squad. I don't think that's out of the question.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Do you have anything else here?
Just a couple familiar names on the waiver wire or the cut list, not necessarily waivers. Former Eagles second-round pick J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, released by the Falcons. J-Jaw.
Did you mispronounce that?
I don't know what I did.
Frustrate me? Okay.
Corey Clement, Super Bowl hero, released by the Cards. Sidney Jones, former second-round pick, released by the Bengals.
Sidney was released. I didn't know he was with the Bengals.
I didn't either. You mentioned Davion Taylor, just released a couple weeks ago by the Eagles, was signed with the Bears. He was released. You think we might see him?
Probably not, but maybe. He's started here.
How many linebackers?
That's true.
He knows the system. Another former Eagles second-round pick, Eric Rowe.
Now you're going back a little bit.
What year was he? Was he a chip guy? Was he like 14?
Might have been 15.
He was released by the Panthers. I didn't even know. He's had a heck of a career.
Second round 2015.
Out of Utah. Played 8 years. 5 interceptions in 100 games for Eric. I guess he's more of a combo guy. And then Reed Sinnett. I had to mention Reed Sinnett. Only because he threw that touchdown to Devin Allen in Cleveland last year.
All right. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, click the like button, subscribe there as well. We're kind of getting back into regular season mode here. Not to say we won't do some extra pods when news arises. We will do that. The emergency pods will flow if it reaches to that level. But daily pods, we keep those in training camp. We're back to our normal Tuesday, Thursday.
How do you feel about that? A little disappointed? It's kind of fun doing them every day.
It is fun doing every day. I don't know if we'd have enough to talk about.
Because we're not in practice.
Yeah. You kind of need them every day in training camp. I don't think we need them every day in the season. But we still have 3 a week, which is pretty good.
Yeah, and I think we would always find something to talk about. It might not have anything to do with the Eagles, but
yeah, it's just our pronunciation podcast starts on Monday.
Yeah,
Wednesday,
we're doing a linguistics and pronunciation podcast.
All right, let's call this one. We appreciate everyone. For Reuben, I'm Dave. This has been Eagle Eye. We'll talk to you soon.